Democrats have so much power at the state capitol. The only way they can fail is if they split on an issue. And today, they did. Aurora police tried to be transparent. Took them a couple attempts, but they did it. Will Denver City Council defy the mayor over pit bulls? This is happening right now. And a bit of hidden history.
I don't think people know, or very many people know, about Denver's role in this story.
But you'll know next. Democrats have such complete control at the state capitol. If they wanted to paint the place pink and put in an indoor waterfall like Casa Bonita, they could do it. What they wanted, though, was paid family leave. But a split in the party means that top priority probably will not happen. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger takes us inside the issue.
Paid family leave is the idea of taking paid time off work to handle family or medical issues. The proposal that was expected to be introduced at the state capitol would have started with businesses of 20 employees or more. Employees who work 6 months or longer would be eligible for 8 weeks of paid time off starting in 2022. On January 30th, all 4 Democratic sponsors of the bill wanted to stand together as Senator Faith Winter explained the new version that would soon be introduced. Today, as we go back to the future, Senator Angela Williams is no longer a sponsor, and neither is Representative Monica Duran. And just to make this less awkward, we're giving Representative Matt Gray a hand, or an arm.
We did every single decision in this bill together, and all 4 of us were in agreement on all of those decisions, and ultimately, we ended up here today.
Winter found out in a phone call last night. The type of negotiation and disagreement that normally happens behind the scenes is now very public. Williams and Duran declined to interview, but Williams texted this statement. The bill in its current form does not deliver a benefit to the vast majority who tend to work in low-wage jobs that often lack stability. We believe strongly in paid family medical leave in principle, but are struggling with many of the details.
It is still my intention to get as many people paid family leave as possible, and that includes marginalized people. The bill's a work in progress, and I'm just going to keep working on it.
In my email inbox, just in the last hour, a statement from Colorado Working Families Party. It's a group that seeks to elect progressive candidates, and apparently the governor is no longer on their holiday card list. I'm going to paraphrase what they sent. Basically, it blamed the governor for getting too heavy-handed and involved in a legislative process instead of simply being the executive. In response, the governor says taking pot shots isn't going to get us anywhere, and if paid family leave was easy, we'd have it by now.
But the fact is, when it comes to the process on the legislative side, the governor's been in the kitchen. He's been stirring the soup.
And still in this, because Senator Faith Winter said she had talked with the governor today about this.
Issue's not dead if it doesn't pass this session, though.
No, this will end up on your ballot. There are people that are willing to put this paid family leave to a vote of the public, which just means your 2020 ballot will be exponentially longer.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Marshall. Some pretty vile racism has been tucked into the way that people talk about hair for a long time. Colorado is about to outlaw discrimination based on hair type. This will soon pass the state Senate and be signed by the governor. We asked African Americans in our community what this means to them.
I was in my early 20s. I think my first reality check was I was working for a large corporation. I went to work wearing my new braids that I'd gotten done over the weekend, and my manager had so many questions. She was overflowing with questions about how it was done, how long it took. Then she wanted to touch them, which was incredibly invasive. So she then got on the phone, and I overheard her telling some other people in the department, hey, you need to come up to the 4th floor. Simone has a new hairstyle. She has these crazy braids. Looking at her working today is like watching a monkey in the zoo.
When I see folks who are celebrating their natural hair, I think it's courageous and honorable, and we should also support them in celebrating that. And coming as your true, authentic self to work and to school and even home, I mean, it makes you a better person. It makes you better at your job. It makes you better at school. And so this is something that we're able to celebrate here, right here in Colorado.
The interim chief of Aurora Police took over recently with promises of transparency. Now, when Chief Vanessa Wilson says transparency, that's the shorter version of Aurora Police busted public trust when an officer was found out blacked out drunk in his patrol car on duty, kept his job. So did all the officers who came to the scene and didn't book him for drunk driving. And the old interim chief retired rather than face an investigation for how he handled it. Promising transparency is easier to say. It is also easier to say than to do. Today, Chief White announced that in keeping with her promise of transparency, she had fired an Aurora police officer for severe misconduct. Which officer? Wouldn't say. What did the officer do? Wouldn't say. A few of us pesky journalist types suggested that perhaps the public might deserve a bit more transparency than that. And lo and behold, about an hour ago, Aurora police identified the fired officer as Levi Hafeen. Still don't know what the officer is accused of doing. But at least in terms of transparency, Aurora police are taking some steps in the right direction. Pete Buttigieg is trying to chip into Senator Bernie Sanders' popularity here in Colorado before Super Tuesday's primary. Buttigieg flew in from a long day in Nevada on Saturday, and thousands stayed up for a 9:30 p.m. rally with him near the airport. By the time we sat down, it was 11 at night, and he still needed to board a flight for South Carolina. There are hundreds of thousands of people living in this state who are not in this country legally. Gathered together, they'd be the fourth largest city in Colorado. I hear a lot of candidates talk about who should have a path to citizenship, who should not.
Well, I'm focused on the creation of a path to citizenship for the undocumented who are here, who have been living and working in communities and making a difference, paying taxes, but have no way to get their status cleared up. I think the front of the line is DACA recipients, kids who often only know this country, who are as American as the rest of us, but don't have the documentation to show for it. Also at that front of the line, families who have been separated, who have been harmed by U.S. immigration policy. And we need to make sure that some of those veterans who have been subject to deportation are given the opportunity at citizenship. Surely they have earned it.
Is a violent crime conviction a disqualifier for citizenship?
Well, I think a violent crime conviction should be handled by our criminal courts. We keep trying to push this into an immigration conversation, but this is something that needs to be handled criminally.
You often tout the experience that you gained as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. For some context for Coloradans, that's a city about the size of Longmont, Colorado. The mayor up there, Brian Bagley, he is a really nice guy. I cannot fathom anybody saying that his experience as mayor of Longmont prepared him to be president. How do you convince Americans that you're sufficiently prepared?
Well, there's no office like the presidency. There's also no office like mayor. And when people say, why would a mayor from a community that's not one of the largest in the country contemplate this, part of my point is to make sure that we're bringing different voices to Washington. And the experience that I've had, not just turning around a city in the so-called Rust Belt that was described as dying just a decade ago, but also my experience in the military, I believe shapes the perspective that I can bring to the White House while building an administration that will have the experience and the wisdom necessary to turn the page in this country before it's too late.
Senator Elizabeth Warren also campaigned in Denver this weekend. She drew a crowd of thousands at the Fillmore in Denver. Warren's team declined our request for a conversation about Colorado-specific issues. You can see our full unedited discussions with Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Tulsi Gabbard, Tom Steyer, and former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, all on the next YouTube channel. We extended invitations to all the major Democratic candidates as well as President Trump. There's a new boss at the Greeley Tribune, and it's bad news. It's Alden Global Capital, the hedge fund that gutted the Denver Post. Those remaining staffers at the Post are fighting to keep the paper relevant. The Greeley Trib does not have as much to cut to keep the hedge fund's profits high, and those journalists are in for a real fight. We wish them the best because we know that the work they do is valued in northern Colorado. For Denver's pit bull ban to die tonight, 2 members of City Council must stand up to the most powerful man in town.
They're staying up at the Rossonian and Five Points and enjoying the jazz and nightlife up there and winning baseball games by day.
Colorado's little-known role in breaking baseball's color barrier. And this is really a shame, because I think scooters are recyclable. Next. For more than 2 decades, Americans have pondered the question, who let the dogs out? Well, it is not going to be Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, and it doesn't look like it will be Denver City Council either, because they don't have the votes to override the mayor's first veto to block the repeal of the city's pit bull ban. Steve Steger has been tracking the Baja Men's famous question as it relates to a city council meeting that's happening now, Steve.
Hard to believe that's 20 years old.
1998. Yeah.
Right? Councilwoman Amanda Sawyer gave advocates of pit bulls a bit of hope last night. She originally voted against the repeal of the ban. Then Sawyer tweeted this last night. She was watching a pro pit bull documentary called Beyond the Myth. She says it brought her to tears. Now, to override Mayor Hancock's veto, the council would need to add 2 more yes votes to the original total. They appear to have 1 extra. Advocates had hoped Sawyer would be the other, but before tonight's vote, which we are still waiting for, Sawyer told council she hasn't been persuaded to change.
There has to be some factual difference. There has to be a factual change that would make me change my vote in some way. And at the end of the day, that factual change just hasn't come in. In District 5, the #1 complaint that we receive when it comes to animals is off-leash dogs in parks.
Sawyer went on to say that this bill would not include money to increase patrols in parks to crack down on those off-leash dogs. She did, however, say that both sides appear close on this issue, and she says she would support going to the voters to get their input. It's believed that'll be the next effort. Council would vote on that like they would any other ordinance, and then it would be referred to the ballot, but that would be a while from now, Kyle.
More and more, it seems like we're hearing from people, well, hey, listen, if you want to legalize them, you can do it. I just don't want that on my hands. Obviously, we're not the only city having debates about BSLs, breed-specific legislation.
Right, and we've heard a lot of other cities referenced of their council doing something, but I looked and I found 2 cases from last year where it went to the voters, one in Parma, Ohio, the other in Liberty City near Kansas City. And in both of those cases, it was a razor-thin margin. One went in favor of repealing, the other one went in favor of keeping the ban. So it's a pretty close margin. If you look at those cities, who knows what the electorate here would do.
Was it Liberty City that let the dogs out?
Perhaps.
Okay. It was either them or Parma. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Sunshine on Monday, but you know what? It was also really windy and really cold, and the wind and snow creating issues for those traveling the I-70 corridor tonight, where advisories are out for travel. Our high today only 42, just shy of the average of 47. This is the system coming at us from Montana, moving into Nebraska tonight. Pressure gradients tight. Winter weather advisories go out for the eastern plains tomorrow for 1 to 3 inches of snow and gusty winds in excess of 50 miles per hour. So difficult travel to the east. In the mountains, we're already hearing reports of whiteout conditions due to the wind and snow, with that winter weather advisory in effect through the overnight areas. We'll see that time period up in the high country with the heaviest snow will be late tonight, early tomorrow. And then tomorrow afternoon, when that system rolls through, we've got a chance for snow showers right here in Denver in the afternoon. And then the whole pattern will be changing. Accumulation amounts look to be light, ½ an inch or less, at least here in the city. Tonight, we're still dealing with the wind decreasing for many areas, but still pretty chilly out there. A low overnight will be 16. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, high 28 with afternoon snow showers ending tomorrow night. Lows in the single digits. But then look at this, the end of February. Sunshine and 42 Wednesday, almost 50 on Thursday, low 50s Friday. The weekend looks amazing. Saturday, the warmest day of the week, Kyle, with a high near 60 degrees.
Kathy, thank you. So when we all fall asleep, secret teams of scooter retrievers spread out across Denver. They pick up all the discarded scooters and then carefully rearrange them in the proper places around the city. So someone presumably picked this bird scooter out of a trash can on Grant Street. That apparently was a rider not satisfied with their bird experience. And so an actual, honest-to-goodness concern when they were going to bring the scooters to Denver is that what they've seen in other cities is that when the scooters break, they aren't repaired. The companies just throw them in the trash. Back before Jackie Robinson became a star in the majors,
Denver, believe it or not, was really the first place in the country where people could see high-level professional baseball played on an integrated field.
their names are legend. Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and they played in Denver. That's next. A decade before Jackie Robinson broke Major League Baseball's color barrier, crowds in Denver were watching some legendary black players on the diamond. Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson came here for the Denver Post Tournament, which started in 1934. Our Byron Reed looks back.
This man is Fleet Walker. In 1884, he was on the Toledo Blue Stockings.
The history of integration in baseball may be a surprise to some.
Denver, believe it or not, was really the first place in the country where people could see high-level professional baseball played on an integrated field. A headline from the Denver Post.
Jason Hansen is the Chief Creative Officer at History Colorado, where they're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Negro League Baseball.
Also has a surprising Denver connection, and so we really wanted to make sure that we noted it here at the museum.
Hansen says in the 1920s and 30s, it was hard for people out west to see high-quality baseball.
The major leagues came as far west as St. Louis. The Negro Leagues came as far west as Kansas City.
Until a tournament was started to bring baseball talent to Colorado.
They called it the Little World Series of the West.
And was one of the earliest places where integrated games took place.
In 1934, the Denver Post sports editor, a guy named Poss Parsons, he knew the competition could be even better. And the way to do that was to invite the Negro League teams to play in it.
The tournament attracted all-star Negro League players like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson to play in front of sports writers from all across the country.
The guys who were watching this tournament in Denver were saying these guys can play with the best of them. And eventually Branch Rickey, the general manager of the Dodgers, signs Jackie Robinson. And it sparks this golden era of baseball. Willie Mays, Ernie Banks, Hank Aaron.
These are all guys who started their career in the Negro Leagues.
I don't think very many people know about Denver's role in this story.
And the exhibit shows their contributions to America's favorite pastime.
This was the place where it was okay to come and start playing integrated baseball, and that really helped push the movement forward in a really significant way.
For Next,
this is history that absolutely should not be forgotten.
I'm Byron Reed.
I hear that a good number of you actually don't like this program, but are forced to watch it because someone else in your home loves it. Often a child or a dog. Proof of that and your feedback next. Next has years worth of dancing babies who love the theme music, so now we've mostly focused our outreach on dogs. That is our colleague Kristen Aguirre's dog Vaca getting in on the program. Vaca, because she looks like a cow. So a Frenchie kind of looks like a cow. In the best way. We mean that in the absolute best way. She's a Frenchie, so she is allowed in Denver. Pit bulls still not allowed in Denver. The vote on City Council tonight, 8-5. The mayor's veto and the pushback from citizens did not move a single vote. So now the next issue is whether it goes to the November ballot. Jason writes in and says, what is the point of having legislators if we're just going to put everything on the ballot? It did happen with two stories tonight. You got paid family leave, which doesn't look like Democrats can pass the state capitol, so that's going to go to the ballot. Looks like pit bulls are going to go to the ballot. Coloradans get to decide on a whole lot of things themselves. Victoria Cameron says, Kyle, thank you for lending your support to the Greeley Tribune staff. They are in for a rough time. That is the owner of the Denver Post. The hedge fund Alden buys them. GJ Schoaf wants to know if President Trump declined our interview. His team did. We will keep asking. See you next time.